Welcome to Nature Livestream. We're here with environmental experts. We have more than one. We actually have 3 environmental experts here from DOEE. Welcome to Nature Livestream. We're here at McMillan Reservoir in Ward 5. We're at one of 5 DOEE monitoring sites for air quality.
For those watching at home, the DOEE is the Department of Energy and the Environment.
Yes. We're at the live stream Nature Connection. We're in Ward 5 at the McMillan Reservoir, one of the 5 monitoring stations for the District Department of Environmental Energy and Environment. And we're at an air quality monitoring site, and that's what we'll be doing today. My name is Rebecca Davis. I am an education program manager for Clean Air Partners. Clean Air Partners is an organization. It's a public-private partnership that educates the Baltimore, Washington area on the health impact of air quality. So that's what we are doing here today. We're going to look at air quality. Did you guys know that you breathe about 2,000 gallons, between 2,000 and 3,000 gallons of air per day? And so making sure that that air is clean is super important because that's what's going in your lungs. So air quality is really important to lung health, but also to your heart. So not only your respiratory system, but your cardiac system as well. And to overall the body of your health of your body. And so when we're talking about air, we're talking about gases. 78% of those gases are nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% is mixed gases, with argon being the main one. So today what we're going to talk about are the different types of instruments that are used to measure air quality. And with me, I have 3 experts. So we don't only have 1 environmental expert, nor 2 environmental experts, we have 3 environmental experts. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk to Kane Samuel right here. And he is an environmental protection specialist over at DOEE, the District Department of Energy and the Environment. And he's gonna go inside with us and we're gonna actually look at instruments. Then we have Cameron Scher here, who's also an environmental specialist. And we're gonna go up above on the roof with him and check out instruments, especially related to particulate matter. And here next to me, I have Miss Kelly Crawford, who's the State Director of the Division of Air Quality at the District Department of Energy and the Environment. And what does your division do?
Good morning. So the Air Quality Division works every day to protect the health and welfare of district residents and visitors, to provide monitoring services to detect the quality of the air in the outdoor ambient air.
The outdoor ambient air. And what do we mean by air quality? What are the things that we're looking for on air quality?
So for air quality, what we're looking for is concentrations of indicators that indicate air pollution. So we have 5 monitoring stations across the district where we measure criteria pollutants. The criteria pollutants that we look for are nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, and particulate matter. So we have several monitoring stations throughout the district, which Cameron and Kane are going to show you our main station here at McMillan. And they're going to show you the different types of analyzers that we use to measure the concentrations of those criteria pollutants.
All right, cool. So we're going to go inside in a couple minutes, but what we have to understand is that like all scientists, air quality technicians and analysts, they're collecting evidence, right? And they're collecting evidence in the form of different types of data. And so what we're going to see are different types of instruments that are collecting data. And this is going to help sustain the claim about the air quality that we are breathing. And so that's what we're interested in doing. So the first is going to be, we're going to go with paint. It's going to be a little noisy inside, so bear with us. We can't turn the instruments off, but Kane is going to show us in the room with the analyzers. Let's go.
How's it going, guys? So these instruments are analyzers, and they use to measure levels of SO2, also known as sulfur dioxide. Sources of sulfur dioxide are power plants and other major facilities that burn fossil fuels. We have nitrogen dioxide. Sources of nitrogen dioxide is combustion of these fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and gas. We have carbon monoxide. Sources of carbon monoxide would be cars, trucks, or other vehicles and machinery that burn fossil fuels. And then we have ozone. Sources of ozone are the other pollutants that I just mentioned when they come into contact with sunlight and form a photochemical reaction. So one thing to notice is this is not to be confused with ozone located in the stratosphere that protects us from ultraviolet rays. Ground level ozone is actually toxic for our bodies. We have the gas chromatograph. The gas chromatograph helps us detect trace elements located in the air. And what I mean by trace elements is chemical compounds found in very small concentrations. So we use this to help determine air pollutants. These results can then be displayed on this monitor right here by peaks. We can liken peaks to fingerprints. Each chemical compound has a unique fingerprint that helps us identify.
All right, so now that we've looked at all the different instruments, or at least some of the instruments here, can we talk about what you end up doing with these instruments? So how do you communicate to the public what all this data is providing you?
We take the data and we send it off to EPA, and the EPA uses this to help create laws and regulations to help keep control over the amount of pollutants in the atmosphere. And we also do this by using an AQI, which is the air quality index. So it's pretty straightforward, color coordinated, and this pretty much just tells us like the levels, which is good, moderate, unhealthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous. And to kind of make this into a full circle moment, we can see right here on the ozone analyzer, 42.8. And based on this chart, 0 to 50 is good. So right now we're doing pretty well.
Can you talk a little bit about the two things I'd like you to talk about? One of them is about the health impact of these things, but also the sources, right? What are some of the sources of these pollutants that these analyzers are measuring?
Okay, so health impact, that's one of the biggest things. So these pollutants are very hazardous to people in like certain groups, especially their children, elderly people with certain respiratory issues such as asthma. It even affects people with diabetes very strongly. That's one thing that we have to keep in mind. And certain sources of these pollutants would be vehicles, stationary sources like power plants, even dry cleaners emit pollutants, and like things like that.
So, Ms. Parker, can you talk about how they're regulated? Like, how do you regulate some of these so that to limit the amount of pollutants in the air?
So the Air Quality Division has a couple of control programs that are aimed at reducing air pollution based on what we're seeing at the monitoring stations. So, for example, we have the Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance Program, which requires people to take their car to the DMV every couple of years to make sure that their cars are not emitting excess pollution. We also have a permitting program where businesses that do activities that could possibly produce air pollution take certain steps to limit their contribution to the loads of toxic air pollutants to the air. So, for example, if you have really large facilities that have boilers, generators, equipment that uses fuel like diesel fuel or even natural gas, that those combustion products are controlled at the sources. So those are two primary ways of reducing pollution in the district. However, we also work regionally and nationally with our partners in other states to develop control programs for the entire region.
Yeah. And another thing to know is that just very recently we had Air Quality Awareness Week and Asthma Day. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so we had Air Quality Awareness Week last week, and what we do for Air Quality Awareness Week is we try to raise awareness on how everyday people can get involved and actually limit their impact to air quality. So we give tips and pointers on how to, for example, operate your wood stove, how to reduce travel, like encouraging people to ride the bike or public transportation to reduce their contributions. And then also last week, we did also do a day that we dedicated to talking about environmental justice and talking about how certain communities have historically been overburdened by not only air pollution, but also pollution, and that those health effects dramatically affect those communities even greater. And so talking about some of the things that we've been doing to improve air quality, not only just for the district in general, but also especially concentrating resources to improve air quality where it matters most.
All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to join Cameron upstairs, and we're going to look at some other instruments that are used to monitor the air quality. Let's go.
Thanks, Mr. Kane. Thanks, Ms. Kelly. So we are going to head up a set of stairs.
Very good. All right, so now we're up on the top, and we're here with Cameron Share, and we're going to be looking at some other instruments that are here. As you can see, we have a beautiful view of the Capitol building right there, and perfect wind. All right, Cameron, you want to talk to us about this instrument that we're looking at here?
Sure. Morning, everyone. So yeah, it couldn't have been a more perfect day. Seriously, we get all weather situations all the time, like even in the snow we have. So this is called a BAM 1022, which is the most recent model. BAM means beta attenuation monitoring. So beta attenuation is a system that we use to sort of analyze the particulate matter. What happens here is the PM head, so air gets sucked in through this thing, comes to our little cyclone here, which helps kind of like filter out all the big particulate and goes into here, which is where our analyzer is. So let me give you a good view of it. So as you can see, this is the filter tape. What happens is that the air is sucked onto the filter tape, and there's a little analyzer inside this little block here that tells us how much particulate matter is inside the air.
It looks like 9.
Right. Yeah, make it a little bit brighter. This is like the sleep mode.
What's the data for today?
So it's sampling at 9 micrograms. So that's what it's telling us. This is just the flow and the ambient temperature. And this is one of, I think, maybe 10 samplers that we have all around the city, specifically at this time.
So actually, I just wanted to point out to the students here, Kelsey, if you don't mind. Sorry, I forgot to introduce Kelsey is behind the camera from Casey Trees. Hi. And we'll talk about the impact of trees. But if you look very closely, you see this unit of measurement, right? And I always say to students, no naked numbers, right? Because a number by itself means nothing. It has to have a unit. This unit is micron, right, per cubic meter. So if you imagine a cubic meter, so a cube, a three-dimensional structure that's a cube, that's a meter long, a meter wide, and a meter high. And you imagine that particle is very small. But why? Tell us why 2.5 is super important.
2.5 is super important specifically because it's a part of the stuff that we breathe. It gets lined into our lungs. It's, you know, you're not thinking about just regular smog. We're talking about the microscopic organisms that we can't see. And unfortunately, there's a lot in the air. So this helps tell us how much we're getting of the different kinds of particulate matters that we see that are out in the air.
So one of the things that's super important about particulate matter 2.5 and particulate matter 2.5 is that the size of it, there's different, as Cameron will tell us, that some of these machines take up particulate matter 10 micron per cubic meter. And then this has a specific part of the instrument to remove just the 2.5. Why this is important is because 2.5 is a size so small that when you're breathing it, what happens, it goes into your lungs, into your trachea, into your lungs. And it's actually so small that it can go through that barrier between the alveoli and where the gas exchange is taking place. And so we want to reduce as much as possible the amount of particulate matter 2.5. You want to talk to us about this a little bit, what you were explaining to me about this?
Sure, the cyclone.
So this is just our filtration thing. All of our particulate matter, even these things, all of our particulate matter sensors have this to be able to cut down all of the PM in the air, because normally when you suck it in, it's going to be like big particulates all the time. So this is kind of like the small pump section, and it pulls the air into this. And I'm not going to give you a diagram, but it goes into our little section here, and it can basically, after the filtration, you know, it goes into 2.5. Yeah. If it's just regular air, it's not good enough for us. Yeah.
And then you have some instruments, and I'll talk about a little bit about the instruments that I have that are available, that Clean Air Partners has, that is available to schools. I'll show you guys that in a minute. But what I wanted to, for Cameron to show us is these, what are these instruments?
So these are called Purple Air. This is a citizen science type sampler, and it reads a bunch. PM10, PM25, I think a little bit of sulfur. It's a great product, not federally regulated, which is important to know. It's just regular citizen stuff. We talk to the private contractor all the time, set this up. But it's a great way to read at your home and at your school what's going on, you know, in the local area, because, you know, McMillan is separated from the rest of the schools and the rest of the city, as you can see. You put this outside, maybe outside your classroom, you can see immediately exactly how much is happening. Very important. Kind of expensive, but it's really, really helpful. And the network is huge. Yeah. It's all over the country.
Yeah. So other instruments that we have that are somewhat similar is we have that are available to students and to schools here in DC and in Baltimore as well are the air beams, which measure particulate matter 10 and particulate matter 2.5. And this is another type of egg that measures, I think this one measures ozone and carbon dioxide. So these two are available for the student classroom to do air quality tests in our area. All right, I was going to move over to this this instrument here.
Now we have an even nicer view of the capital.
Yes.
So these intake lines are basically just bigger versions of what you saw over there. So that's a BAM 1022. These are for BAM 1020s, which are something like 15 years old. We still use them. They're still federally regulated, so it's super important. This has also got the cyclone, just like the other one. So this is for PM25. As you can see on this one, we don't keep a cyclone on. There's no sharp cut. So that means that it's reading everything up to PM10.
All right, cool. All right, so I think we're going to go back down and we're going to talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, about your educational background. Kind of interesting to see where, yeah. I'm ready.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. All right, what I thought we would do now is a little bit talk about educational background, if you don't mind, to kind of get the students that are in high school and middle schools that are attending this live stream. Can you tell us a little bit what your educational background, what your road to this job has been?
Yes, I think one thing that the students need and the teachers will appreciate is I'm recently graduated from college, fall 2019. Just to kind of like reiterate who I am, my name is Kane Samuel. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I graduated from Frostburg State University with a degree in chemistry. Pretty much how I got here, it's funny. I had a teacher in college to tell me to go outside, and pretty much he just gave me some equipment and just encouraged me to kind of like be curious, promote environmental stewardship. And then from there, he gave me a project and pretty much restructured the whole class around my project. And it just kind of all led me in this direction.
Okay.
To simply go outside, find something, and then tell people what it is you found.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So my educational background is a little sordid. I'm from San Francisco, and I moved out here about 10 years ago. And I got a degree in computer science, so software engineering, basically. Not at all, you know, real physical science. I did a lot of volunteer work to help. Actually, K6 Region is one of them, and I helped Grid Alternatives and a bunch of other places, and installed solar panels and planted trees. And the associate director of DOEE hit me up and ask like, hey, you're pretty good at this. How do you feel about your position? So, you know, I just want to point out that math runs everything about it. All of the analytics, everything that we do, all of the samples. It's so important to get up. It works for every class. It works for everything that you study. So I just really want to push it.
So we have math, we have chemistry. What else do we have?
Yeah,
And computer science, yes, computer science.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is, so today is a perfect air quality day. You don't get much better than this. It's a good breeze. But what are some of the main offending pollutants here in the city?
So for the district, we are in non-attainment for the ozone standard. So ozone is formulated in the atmosphere when you have a combination of certain precursors or ingredients for ozone in the presence of sunlight. So we're just entering into what we call ozone season, which is when weather conditions are perfect for creating ozone, which is particularly hazardous to human health and the environment. During this time, we do a lot of extra monitoring and we do what's called forecasting. So we have a team of scientists and engineers that work on a regional work group to predict how the air quality will change from day to day. And we do that between now and the fall during the ozone season. We also do some additional monitoring that we're required to do that we report to EPA that we only do during ozone season. So we're going to talk, I think, with Cameron and Kane about some of the tasks that they do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that all of our analyzers and samplers are working and reporting the data in real time so that we can carefully monitor what air pollution is doing and how it's changing from day to day, especially now.
Yeah.
All right, Cameron and Kane, can you guys talk about the day-to-day quality control and other tasks that you do here to keep the instruments going and for the data to be accurate?
So because we have so many things and they're sampling ambient air, there's going to be a lot of pollen, there's going to be a lot of dirt, a lot of biological insects and stuff that get caught up, which is unfortunate. It takes a lot of effort to maintain these devices to keep reading the complete analyzation that it should be. So probably once a month for me, every single thing you saw up there, I have to clean it. I have to clean the down tube. I have to change the filters. I have to do all that stuff. It's a federally regulated system. And if we don't do it, then our machines aren't kept in line with what they read and we lose everything. So it's a very big part of the process. On top of like the analyzation and the sampling, we also have to make sure that they're working.
Just kind of to punctuate what Cameron said, he highlighted we have to make sure they're working correctly. He mentioned the pollen, he mentioned like the dirt and the insects that collected it. One thing to notice, ladies and gentlemen, is these instruments are running 24 hours. They're continuous. Right? They're constantly measuring levels of ozone. They're constantly measuring levels of particulate matter, CO, SO2. All these criteria pollutants are always being monitored. We're working around the clock for you guys, just to make sure that the air remains, in good quality. So that requires daily cleanings, that requires weekly QCs, monthly checks, and just making sure that all the paperwork is filled out and that we're constantly keeping this dialogue, reporting to EPA, working together.
All right, one more thing, actually two more things we're going to be talking about is one of the things we want to know is, okay, so we know that during the summer, and it happens more and more rarely, but sometimes we have code orange or code red days, right? So what should individuals do, especially folks that are asthmatic or have a cardiac issue? What are your suggestions?
So we always encourage everyone to check the air quality index, especially if they have, if they're particularly sensitive to air pollution. So that would include folks living with asthma, older Americans, people who have respiratory diseases, and especially children. If you check your AQI and you notice that it's perhaps either an actual or a forecasted code orange or code red day, things that you can do to limit your exposure to air pollution include spending more time indoors, limiting activities during the worst parts of the day, and also choosing to take public transportation, walking or biking instead of driving your car, which only contributes to exacerbating the air pollution problems. So we always encourage folks to, kind of take their health into their own hands and watch out for days when the outdoor air can be particularly hazardous and avoid going outside or doing activities that would exacerbate air pollution.
Yeah. So one of the sources, there are a number of sources where you can get your AQI. You can get it on your television, very often in the radio as well. When they're calling out the weather, they'll mention, especially during this time of year, from May on to October. There's also an app on Clean Air Partners. If you look at, you can sign up for this app really easily. And I would suggest any parent or student who has any kind of sensitive to air pollution to sign up, and it'll forecast what the air quality is going to be like. And like Ms. Crawford said, there are things that we can do, right? So what are some of those things that we can do? So for example, not consuming as much electricity, right? Whether you're at school or at home, reducing your electricity, reducing all these phantom plugs, those plugs that are eating up your electricity, but really not doing anything for you. Another thing Ms. Crawford mentioned was taking public transportation, right? We know that in DC, some of the air quality issue is from the transportation sector. And so reducing the amount of times you get in your car, walking more, biking more, it makes you healthier and your lungs healthier. The other thing, and I'm gonna plug in Casey Trees, is planting gardens, planting trees. One of the things that some of us have been using with students is an app called iTree. And in iTree, you can actually virtually plant a tree and see the benefits. And one of the benefits is air quality, right? So trees are really helpful in absorbing pollutants as well as sequestering carbon dioxide, which is super important right now with all the climate change issues. So these are some of the things that you can do. You can have an impact on the quality of the air that you breathe. Pay attention to the AQI, especially during the summer. If you're a camper, you'll notice that when it's code red, you will not be allowed to be outside. Usually, especially if you're in the DPR, on code red days, you will not, they prefer that you don't go outside. Why is that? Because there's some air quality issues. So it could be particulate matter and it could be ozone. Remember, ozone is what we call a secondary pollutant, right? It takes the NOx and the SOx in with the the light from the sun, and the heat transfers into ground level ozone, which is what's not good. It kind of gives you a sunburn to your lungs. So I would like to thank all our environmental experts that we had today. This was an awesome visit, and I hope you guys had fun. Feel free to send me any questions that you have, and I'll forward it to DOEE Air Quality Division. Thank you, and bye.
Thank you.